A 67-year-old gentleman walked into my clinic a year ago. He didn't smoke, and his family history was completely clear of cardiac issues. He diligently ate what he considered to be a highly nutritious diet every single day. Yet, his blood vessels resembled those of someone 2 decades his senior. They were swollen, rigid, and degraded in a manner I typically only witness in individuals who have spent their entire lives making incredibly poor health decisions. We conversed extensively, and the root cause wasn't hidden in his genetics. It wasn't tied to his daily anxiety, nor was it related to his body mass. The culprit was actually his nightly routine of warming up his evening meals. As a cardiothoracic surgeon, I have dedicated more than 3 decades to operating on human hearts. The information I'm about to reveal isn't typically discussed during your routine physicals. However, once you cross the threshold of 60, its significance cannot be overstated. There is a specific group of 5 everyday items in your kitchen that transform into genuine hazards when warmed up again. I am not merely talking about an upset stomach, I mean truly hazardous. They initiate a cascading reaction within your system that covertly ravages your blood vessels while simultaneously elevating your chances of developing severe diseases. Keep listening, because by the time we finish, your perspective on yesterday's meals will be permanently altered. Your physical form operates under a completely new set of rules once you reach your 60s. Before we examine these 5 specific items, there is a fundamental concept you need to grasp. Back in your 30s and 40s, your system possessed an astonishing capacity to counteract harm. Whether it was rogue-free radicals, mild environmental poisons, or low-level swelling, your cellular machinery dealt with it all swiftly and silently. You remained completely unaware. You didn't have to spare a single thought for it. But passing 60 means that intricate defense network loses its swiftness. Your liver takes longer to filter out harmful substances. Your immune defenses lose a bit of their pinpoint accuracy. The walls of your blood vessels thin out and sacrifice their flexibility. Furthermore, your genetic repair tools become increasingly erratic. Does this imply you are suddenly delicate? Not in the slightest. However, your buffer for mistakes shrinks considerably. Habits that were perfectly benign at 40 are no longer benign at 65. This brings us directly to the concept of inflammation. Now, inflammation itself isn't the villain. In brief spurts, it is precisely how your body patches itself up. You slice your hand and inflammation sanitizes the area. You contract a bug and inflammation mounts a defense. That is entirely natural and beneficial. The true danger lies in relentless, persistent inflammation. This is a subtle, simmering, unceasing state of alert that refuses to power down. Persistent inflammation doesn't just isolate its attack to a single organ. It wreaks havoc on your vascular system and cultivates a setting where erratic cellular multiplication gains a foothold. I have witnessed both of these devastating results firsthand in the surgical theater far more frequently than I ever care to remember. The 5 items we are going to explore all possess a singular unifying trait. When you heat them a second time, they generate chemical structures that your older body simply cannot easily disarm. And as the days and meals compound, those harmful structures accumulate. Let us initiate this list with an item currently sitting in countless kitchens: anything deep fried. This includes your standard potato wedges, battered poultry, or practically whatever you submerge in vegetable-based oils, whether that is corn, soybean, or sunflower oil. You are undoubtedly aware that these aren't the pinnacle of wellness. Yet, here is the secret you probably haven't been told. The real peril doesn't stem from your initial consumption. The true threat emerges when you attempt to reheat it. Warming up those plant-based oils a second time forces them into a state of chemical degradation. The lipids undergo oxidation, and this exact process discharges volatile elements known as aldehydes. To put that into perspective, these are the exact same hazardous elements present in tobacco fumes. I am not exaggerating for effect. This is pure molecular biology. So, what exactly happens when aldehydes enter your system? Initially, they target the inner lining of your blood vessels. They set off a wave of oxidative stress, which subsequently injures the delicate cells coating your circulatory pathways. As time marches on, this breeds swelling. The pathways become thick, rigid, and stubbornly inflexible. For an individual past their 60th birthday, whose veins and arteries are naturally losing their stretch, this presents a critical hazard. It is essentially an expressway to elevated blood pressure, but that is merely the beginning. Aldehydes act as free radicals, and free radicals execute a deeply concerning maneuver. They inflict damage upon your actual DNA. They assault the very blueprints inside your cells. In a younger body, these genetic errors are typically mended. Past 60, however, this mending phase drags. Certain genetic alterations evade the checkpoints. Once a sufficient number of these errors gather in vulnerable locations, that is precisely the genesis of severe cellular degeneration. Do you need to permanently banish battered foods from your life? No. But the act of recooking them, particularly blasting them in a microwave or frying them twice, exponentially increases the bodily harm. If you find yourself with remaining fried portions, use a standard oven or an air-circulating fryer at a medium setting without introducing any new fats. Or, an even wiser choice, consume them straight from the refrigerator. This next item usually stuns my patients because we are taught that dark leafy greens are the ultimate superfoods. Think spinach, Swiss chard, and kale. And when handled right, they absolutely are. The complication arises post-cooking. In their raw state, these greens hold nitrates, natural elements that are largely benign. Your digestive tract handles them effortlessly. But watch what unfolds when you cook these vegetables and let them linger. Microbes start transforming those harmless nitrates into nitrites. This shift happens right on your countertop, speeding up when the greens aren't stored correctly. Up to this point, your body can still cope. The critical hazard triggers when you apply heat again. That secondary heat forces nitrites to bind with amino acids, birthing compounds known as nitrosamines. The World Health Organization categorizes nitrosamines as probable cancer-causing agents in humans, heavily tied to malignancies of the stomach, colon, and esophagus. Yet, the oncological threat is merely half the battle. Nitrosamines also incite swelling in your vascular system, specifically assaulting the endothelium, the delicate interior wallpaper of your veins. When this lining swells, your blood vessels struggle to manage flow. Blood pressure spikes become stubborn. The chance of clotting surges. For anyone over the age of 60, confronting both a carcinogenic threat and cardiovascular swelling simultaneously is a profound danger. The agonizing part is that your intentions are pure. You prepare the spinach for its vitamins. You warm it up later for convenience. Therefore, the remedy is exceptionally straightforward. Prepare strictly the amount of greens you intend to consume in that exact moment. Any remaining portions should be tossed cold into a salad. Never subject them to a second round of heat. Also, ask yourself, are you leaving cooked greens out on the counter before putting them in the chiller? Even a single hour radically accelerates that toxic conversion. Moving on, rice appears to be the most innocuous dish imaginable. It is fundamental, bland, and safe. Billions consume it daily. Surprisingly, warmed-over rice triggers more instances of food poisoning than nearly any other dietary staple globally. The reason is fascinating. Boiling rice successfully eliminates the vast majority of microbes. However, one specific strain plays by an entirely different set of rules. Its spores are practically invincible. They endure the boiling water. They endure the steaming. They simply go to sleep in the intense heat. But once that rice begins to drop in temperature, those spores awaken and reproduce at an astonishing rate. You might assume, no problem. I will just microwave the rice until it is piping hot to kill them off. And you are correct about the bacteria. Reheating will eradicate them. But it absolutely will not touch the toxic byproducts they have already deposited. Bacillus cereus emits toxins that are entirely immune to heat as it multiplies. You could scorch that rice and those toxins would remain perfectly intact, highly active, and primed to inflict harm. On a surface level, you face nausea, abdominal distress, and vomiting. It is miserable, but you will survive. What goes unmentioned, however, is the long-term consequence. Subjecting your system to these minor toxins repeatedly, 3 or 4 times weekly over a span of years, forges chronic swelling within your intestines. And digestive inflammation refuses to stay localized. It radiates. Your digestive tract and your cardiovascular system communicate through vast networks. Inflammatory distress signals ride through your bloodstream. Disruptions in your gut microbiome immediately alter how you metabolize cholesterol and maintain blood pressure. I have treated individuals presenting with baffling vascular swelling. They were at an ideal weight, never smoked, and ate sensibly. No clear triggers. Yet, when we dissected their daily routines, a single recurring element surfaced: rice. Warmed up rice. Consumed daily, sometimes multiple times. Once you cross 60, the lining of your gut thins out and becomes far more porous. Toxins and inflammatory messengers breach the walls with ease. The biological shield is simply compromised. The solution is incredibly simple, but the clock is your enemy. Chill your cooked rice aggressively. Transfer it into the refrigerator under 60 minutes from the time it leaves the stove. Keep it stored for no longer than 24 hours. And if you must warm it, do it exactly once. Do not ever reheat a batch of rice a second time. Think about it. How long does your pot of rice generally sit out before you put it away? An hour? 3? Lock that time frame in your mind. Next, let's look at poultry. Chicken is arguably the go-to protein source for the older demographic. It is lean, highly adaptable, and incredibly simple to prepare in large batches for the week ahead. The hidden flaw is that combining cooked chicken with a microwave creates a genuinely hazardous scenario, and most individuals are completely oblivious as to why. Microwave ovens operate by vibrating water molecules, but they do so erratically. The energy waves pierce the meat in random uneven bursts. This phenomenon produces what culinary scientists refer to as cold zones. These are hidden pockets deep within the meat that absorb almost zero thermal energy during the reheating phase. They are invisible to the naked eye. The exterior of your poultry piece might appear searing hot, radiating steam. Internally, however, those hidden pockets never achieve a sterile temperature. Instead, they linger in the exact climate where bacteria flourish. We are talking about Salmonella, Campylobacter, and Listeria. These are the primary offenders lurking in leftover chicken. Campylobacter has an uncanny ability to withstand heat levels that would decimate other germs. Listeria, meanwhile, poses an extraordinarily high threat to those in their golden years, as our natural immune defenses wane with age. Enduring a single bout of foodborne illness is just a miserable 24 hours. It hurts, it drains you, but your system eventually bounces back. The authentic peril lies in the repetition. It is the cycle of facing low-grade bacterial onslaughts that your body successfully suppresses, but at the cost of igniting widespread internal swelling. Every single instance your immune forces rally to combat these bacterial intruders, they dump inflammatory cytokines into your circulatory system. Just tiny drops each time. But when this is a frequent habit, those cytokines are practically on a permanent loop in your veins. What impact does that have on your heart and vessels? It actively corrodes the walls of your arteries. It accelerates the buildup of arterial plaque. It thickens the blood, raising the risk of clots. I routinely observe these exact consequences manifesting as slow, creeping arterial decay. How should you handle leftover poultry then? Your microwave is the absolute worst choice. Opt for a conventional oven, wrapping the meat in foil at a medium heat setting. Alternatively, consume it straight from the fridge. If the microwave is your only option, dice the meat into bite-sized fragments beforehand. Most crucially, let it sit untouched for 2 complete minutes after the timer goes off. This makes it exponentially safer. Potatoes might be the most intensely misunderstood item we will cover today. The peril isn't just the act of warming them up, it is how the heat simultaneously manipulates 2 entirely different biological mechanisms. Let us look at acrylamide first. Cooking starchy vegetables at high heat forces sugars and amino acids to react, yielding acrylamide. The International Agency for Research on Cancer flags this as a likely human carcinogen tied to renal and other malignancies. Here is the vital detail. The initial baking creates acrylamide. Reheating it layers even more on top of that baseline. You are stacking your toxic exposure with every trip to the microwave. And past 60, your body clears acrylamide far less effectively. The exact same dose inflicts heavier damage. That covers the oncological risk. Now, let us examine your heart. When fresh potatoes are cooked and subsequently chilled, they develop what is known as resistant starch. This acts remarkably like dietary fiber. It nourishes your beneficial gut flora and severely delays how quickly glucose enters your blood. Your blood sugar climbs gently, but the moment you reheat that potato, the resistant starch shatters, reverting into standard, rapidly digesting starch. Your blood glucose skyrockets. Your pancreas must flood your system with a massive surge of insulin to keep up. For any older adult managing even slight insulin sensitivity, this is incredibly destructive. Violent, repetitive glucose spikes inflict oxidative stress directly onto your vascular walls. They hasten arterial rigidity and are a direct pathway to cardiovascular complications. So, one warmed-over potato delivers a dual strike, carcinogenic compounding and severe vascular stress simultaneously. That is a quiet, double-edged sword. The sensible workaround? Consume them chilled whenever feasible. A cold potato salad drizzled with olive oil and herbs keeps the resistant starch perfectly intact and your blood sugar totally flat. If you absolutely require a hot side dish, prepare a fresh batch. Keep the heat modest, the cooking window brief, and skip the added fats. Simple, functional, and vastly superior for your cells and vessels. Let us zoom out for a second. We have analyzed 5 specific kitchen staples, but the broader message is what truly matters. What is the consequence of these foods conspiring against your biology over months and years? This is a reality I witnessed from a highly unique vantage point. Operating on hearts for 30 years fundamentally alters your perception of time. I am looking at the culmination of habits established decades prior. The individual lying on my surgical table didn't end up there over a single disastrous dinner. They arrived via a persistent routine, and chronic inflammation is the engine of that routine. Every single item we explored today, degraded oils, nitrosamines, bacterial waste, fuels the exact same underlying crisis: persistent, low-grade, total body swelling. Over time, this is the internal reality. The lining of your arteries sustains microscopic tears. Your immune defenses dispatch inflammatory cells to patch the injuries. Those cells gather and begin to stockpile. Arterial pathways constrict. Blood pressure climbs. Your heart is forced to strain itself, pumping aggressively against vessels that are growing increasingly rigid. Simultaneously, your cellular structures endure relentless oxidative stress. Elevated inflammation equals elevated mutation rates. And with more mutations, the odds skyrocket that one slips past your natural checkpoints and morphs into a severe illness. Cardiac decay and aggressive cellular diseases are not isolated tragedies with distinct origins. Frequently, they grow from the exact same root: chronic inflammation. And remember, crossing 60 accelerates the clock. Your physiological reserve is smaller. The vascular decay that took 20 years to manifest at age 40 can easily finalize in just 10 years at 65. Does this reality sound intimidating? Honestly, it is meant to. It is meant to be sobering, not terrifying, because your body's inherent ability to heal is profoundly miraculous. Inflammatory damage can be undone. Vascular health can rebound. You can decelerate and sometimes completely halt these destructive cascades with steady, uncomplicated adjustments. Let us make this highly actionable, because absorbing facts without a practical plan merely generates anxiety. Here are your 5 core swaps. Battered and fried foods. Use an oven or air fryer without extra oil, or eat them cold from the fridge. Stop the oxidation of the existing oil dead in its tracks. Dark leafy greens. Prepare strictly what you will consume immediately. Leftovers must stay cold. Toss them into salads and refrigerate within 30 minutes. Rice. Drop the temperature rapidly. Get it in the cold within an hour, finish it within a day, and warm it up exactly 1 time. Better yet, simply cook smaller portions. Poultry. Abandon the microwave entirely. Bake it covered in foil at a medium heat or eat it chilled. Eliminate those bacterial cold zones completely. Finally, potatoes. Learn to love the cold spud. A chilled potato dish with olive oil and a squeeze of lemon is a brilliantly strategic meal for anyone over 60. None of these protocols demand that you banish your favorite meals. They merely ask you to reevaluate your relationship with temperature and timing. And the beauty is that these tiny victories compound. Every single swap chips away at your total inflammatory burden a fraction at a time. Executing all 5 diligently will profoundly slash that burden over the coming weeks and months. You will notice the difference physically. You will experience sustained vitality, leveled out blood pressure, and smoother digestion. Your kitchen routine in your later years is arguably your most potent shield against heart disease. The clinical data overwhelmingly confirms this. I want to leave you with a deeply personal observation. I have stood over an open human chest more times than I could possibly calculate. In those intense hours, staring directly at a beating heart, meticulously attempting to reverse decades of compounded trauma, your priorities become crystal clear. You stop viewing health as an abstract concept. You stop calculating statistical risk probabilities because you aren't staring at a spreadsheet. You are looking at a 68-year-old grandfather whose circulatory system is so ravaged, inflamed, and encrusted with calcium that the vessels resemble sun-scorched irrigation pipes abandoned in a field for 20 years. And the haunting question that constantly echoes in my mind is, how much of this suffering could have been avoided? The brutal truth, backed by everything I've witnessed and everything the data highlights, is that a massive percentage of it is entirely preventable. Yes, your family tree plays a role. Aging is inevitable. We all face variables we cannot dictate. My goal isn't to point fingers, but the reality is that persistent inflammation is overwhelmingly a choice. And it is the primary architect behind a staggering volume of the cardiac and cellular devastation I treat. Do you want to know what truly stuns me? It is rarely the obvious cases. It is the patients who seemingly followed all the rules. They exercised, managed their waistlines, prepared home-cooked meals, and yet their vessels are scarred by chronic swelling. And when we investigated their routines, the exact same culprits emerged every single time. Warmed-up vegetable oils for lunch, a daily bowl of microwaved spinach, a pot of rice left on the stove overnight, leftover chicken blasted in the microwave 3 times a week without hesitation. None of these actions feel reckless. That is the entire tragedy. They feel remarkably normal, practical, and even responsible. But beneath the surface, past the age of 60, these recurring chemical strikes quietly accumulate. The swelling never truly subsides. The genetic repair crew starts missing crucial details. This is the exact dialogue I desperately wish I could have with every single individual before they are wheeled into my operating theater. Before the surgical prep, before the paths forward become terrifyingly narrow. Right now, your paths are wide open. The simple fact that you are engaging with this video proves you are proactive about your longevity. You are asking the crucial questions. The strategies we laid out today are 5 effortless modifications to your culinary habits, completely within your control, starting this exact second, today. No pharmacy required. The physical vessel you inhabit has transported you a tremendous distance over 6 decades, and it possesses a far greater capacity for restoration than society assumes. But it desperately requires you to stop throwing gasoline on a fire that is already smoldering quietly in the background. Lower the swelling. Defend your arteries. Offer your cells a fighting chance. That isn't just poetic medical advice. That is the unfiltered truth extracted from 30 years in the surgical trenches. So, which of these 5 kitchen staples caught you most off guard? Please share your thoughts down in the comment section. I genuinely want to hear from you. If you have a loved one navigating life past 60 who regularly warms up these dishes, pass this video along to them. Not to incite panic, but to arm them with the exact same power you now hold. If you found this breakdown valuable, please tap that like button. It signals the platform to push this crucial information to other seniors who desperately need it. And make sure to subscribe for more unfiltered, honest dialogues regarding your longevity. Protect your heart and take excellent care of yourselves. Your kitchen is arguably the most influential room in your life. Now, you hold the blueprint on how to truly utilize it. Everything discussed today is for general educational purposes and does not replace personalized medical guidance. Your biological makeup is entirely your own. Always consult directly with your primary care physician before implementing any lifestyle shifts.